Welcome back to Recap Bro. In today's video, I'm going to explain a thriller film called Evil Intent. Released in the year 2019. Turn on subtitles and spoilers ahead. At the beginning of the movie, we are shown an old female patient, who is attended by a beautiful nurse named Gwen. At that moment, the patient is experiencing shortness of breath and asks for more oxygen to be supplied. Instead, the nurse turns off the oxygen and presses the air tube, causing the patient to be unable to breathe. The patient's heartbeat is stopped as a result of this action. The nurse then pretends to shout blue code, which brings doctors to help the patient. In fact, while the doctor is pumping her heart, the nurse is just standing in front of the door, smiling just like a psychopath. Fortunately, the patient's life is still able to be saved by the doctor. After seeing their condition, the nurse walks away as if she is satisfied with what she has done. The scene then shifts to a large house, where a lovely couple can be seen, and their name is Mira and Todd. And their son, Max, then approaches them and tells them he has a problem with his legs. Max suffers from muscular dystrophy, which requires crutches to help him walk around. While chatting, just then their in-home nurse for their son, Gwen, came around. Max chatted happily with his nurse and smiled lovingly back, unknowing that she had just come from almost killing a person. While the four of them are having breakfast together, Max accidentally drops his crutch. Gwen then helps him take his crutch back, but she deliberately loosens the end of his crutch, so that Max will fall due to it later. She kept trying to get Todd's attention, and this greatly annoyed Mira, but she tried to maintain her cool. After Todd has left for work, one of Mira's friends, Karen, comes to visit her at her house. During their conversation, Mira expresses her feelings that Max and Todd prefer Gwen over herself. At that moment, Gwen purposely overhears their conversation. Karen then suggests that Mira checks the references of other nurses who might be able to replace Gwen. But Mira refuses because she believes Gwen has taken good care of Max. And while discussing, they had a loud crash outside, so rushes outside to meet Max, and Mira vented her anger on Gwen, but then, her son told her that it was his fault and he had mistakenly broken his crutches. At night, Mira thought deeply about her reaction and she thought she was overthinking things, so she apologized to Gwen when she came around. Gwen then offered to make her tea, and just then, the horror of the family began. Mira had joined a group, so the next day, she shared her story about when she got to know that our son had muscular dystrophy, and she wept bitterly, having to recall the past. When she got back from the session, Gwen kept feeding her the tea and it caused her to continuously sleep. Dr. Keller came around to give Max a new crutch as Mira had asked, but Gwen collected it from her and didn't allow her into the home. Due to the way Gwen was acting, Dr. Keller thought she was acting strange and she felt she recognized her, but later discarded her thoughts. At night, Gwen went to visit the lady and reminded her of where she has seen her. She was the doctor that had rescued Ida from dying, and before the woman could react further, she kills the doctor and hurriedly left the place. The same night, Mira got connected to a man named David whose child has similar difficulties to hers, and they chatted, but unknowingly to her, it was their psycho nurse that was having a conversation with her. She uses a voice changer program to cheat Mira. The next morning, while the family was having a meal with Gwen, then Karen came around and mistakenly, the tea poured on him. So Mira helped her husband out of his shirt and Gwen couldn't stop staring lustfully at him. Later she offered to take the cloth to the laundry, but she lustfully smelled his cloth and Karen caught her while doing this. At night, like always, Mira had a call with David, and he flirted with her, but yet again, it was Gwen's cunning means to ruin the family, and immediately she was done, she quickly showed up in the kitchen and questioned Mira about David, pretending that she had been around all along. Mira got distracted and almost made use of the wrong detergent, and she helped Mira by calling her back to her senses, but led devilishly after lashing out her thoughts on Mira. On her way to the room, she met Todd, so she reported Mira and laid more emphasis on Mira talking to an online man, but Todd discarded the thought as nothing so serious. And they parted ways, with her hugging Todd tightly for a while. At dawn, she made her first attempt at Todd while they were discussing in the kitchen. A few minutes later, Gwen tries to seduce him for an injection game. But just then, Mira came to the kitchen to call her husband, and the whole family was surprised when they saw that she had made all the dishes, and like usual, she served Mira the drugged tea, and the innocent lady drank the tea. The drugged tea began taking effect on Mira, and while walking on a staircase, she lost her balance. Gwen walked her to a chair and the poor lady kept sleeping and happened to sleep throughout the whole day, that even at night, she was still seeing things blurry, but then she received a message that somebody is faking himself as David. At dawn, she was still sleeping. So Todd began to get worried, and when he picked up her phone from her hand, he saw the message about David, then began to think if Mira is having a conversation with a man, David. When she woke up, she was still feeling so weak and Gwen kept acting so nice to her that she began to feel guilty for hating the lady. She later received a message from the real David that had been texting her not to trust the fake David, so she decided to meet up with the man, but then, she made a mistake by telling Gwen and the lady purposely scope out so that Todd, who was eavesdropping on them, would hear of their conversation. The next day, she met up with the real David at a restaurant and the man explained to her that he doesn't have a son, not to talk of one that has muscular dystrophy. He further explained that his wife Laurel had lung cancer and after speaking to a person online she stopped using her drugs, which led to her death, so he felt the person that killed his wife is the one acting as David. The two end their conversation there, but Todd, who had secretly followed his wife, mistook their meeting for an affair, so he got depressed. While both couples weren't at home, Karen came over, and Gwen acted like the house owner bossy. She clearly warned her that she knows of her true intention. Not wanting her plan to fail, Gwen then took a heavy glass and hit Karen, causing the lady to die. While trying to dispose of the dead body, Todd called her and she managed to kill the sad man in her control, but Mira knew something was wrong when her husband didn't come home early. Gwen also secretly took the knife Mira was using to cook and kept it in a bag. After which, she went to visit David and made him know that she was the murderer of his wife and she had done that because she wanted the man to marry her. The man was so angry, and while they were fighting, she stabbed him with the knife and the man died. Then she quickly left the building. Todd came back late at night drunk and she acted like a nice angel and helped him to his room, but then she began opening his button and he stopped her. She further made advances at him, but he rejected her, thereby making her leave the room feeling very sad. But the next morning, she feigned ignorance and acted as if he was the one that almost taken advantage of her. She tried messing up with the man's thoughts and Todd apologized for any crude way he might have acted. When Mira woke up, she read the message Gwen had left with the tea. It was then things began to get clear to her that Gwen might be an evil person. So she hurried to the kitchen and poured the tea, and she found the strange particles. She then ran to Gwen's room and she happened to find some strange drugs as evidence. But when she notices that Gwen was around, she ran out and acted as if nothing has happened. Seeing Mira awake, Gwen served her another tea, and Gwen faked drinking it before she left with her son for his physical therapy. After they'd left, Mira ran back to Gwen's room and videoed the evidence, and called her husband, but he kept venting about her cheating. Gwen arrived home again and she saw Mira was awake again, so she knew the lady already knows. Just then, Mira saw some blood and was scared for her son, so Gwen told her to humbly follow her and she did so. But Todd arrived home in a panic and he saw Myra's bag in the video she made in Gwen's room. She took Mira to a house and locked the door. She began searching for her son but saw that it was a lie. Being a psychopath, she tried explaining to Mira that killing her is a therapy to heal her, and the poor lady kept crying. She then exposed all of her secrets of all the people that she had killed and told the lady to stay put as she would slowly end her life. Then the both of them began fighting. Seeing a close-by knife, she wanted to use it to stab the lady, but Mira was luckily able to avoid that. Later, she began strangling the lady to death and Mira tried her best to reach a close by the kettle, and with great force, she hit the psycho lady forcefully on her head, and that was the end of the psycho lady's terror. Then, she ran away from the house. A few months later, things were back to normal for the lovely family, and during a tour, they happily chatted and hugged lovingly. The end. What do you think about this video of the psycho lady? Kindly comment below and stay tuned to this channel for more interesting movie updates. Thanks.